Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Read and Reread. I am Angelia, and today it is time for Friday Reads on December 1st. I'm so excited that it is December 1st, and I'm brought on the tacky glamour just to commemorate this occasion. Hold on, you must behold the glitzy awfulness of this whole thing. Ta-da! Now, I actually will wear this t-shirt like out in public, but I probably will leave my sequin vest. Might just stay at home for my own personal enjoyment. But you never know. It depends on how Christmas crazed I get over the next couple of weeks. In fact, I'm probably going to take it off in just a second because it's actually kind of scratchy. But you know, the things we do for beauty. So I'm so excited that it is now December and all the reading events and holiday events that are going to be happening. Hang on a second. I like that better. And I did film some footage the other day when I was setting up my tea advent calendar. And so I'm going to put it at the end of the video in case you just have zero interest in this. You can just vamoose before that part comes up. But last week I set it up, and then this morning I got to open the first teas. So that will be at the end, and that is my big excitement of the morning of December 1st is I got to start my tea advent calendars. And I'm also excited because I didn't get to do a Friday Reads last week because we were traveling, and so I have like a little backlog of things to talk about. So hold on, this is gonna bug me. I'm not sure how somebody wears like a sequined evening gown all evening. It scratches across your arms. What was I talking about? I have already lost the thread and I haven't talked about anything. Happy December. TV shows. Let's start there. The baking show ends tonight, so I'm excited yet sad that that's coming to an end because it's been a really good season. Last year's was kind of off, but this one's been a good one. And I like the bakers that are in the finale, so that'll be fun. And then, what else? We're still watching Murder at the End of the World, which is pretty weird because it was created by the same team that made the OA. So it's not quite as unhinged as that, but it's pretty strange. And we started the new season of Fargo last night, but we've only seen a couple episodes. So far, so good. And then we did watch this 6-part thing that was really good and super, super dark. Very, very dark, called Blackbird on Apple TV. And this was recommended to us by a cousin at Thanksgiving. We were talking about shows that we liked and recommending shows. And he said, okay, this is really dark, but it's good. And it's a true crime. It's based on a true story. And it's about a young guy who is busted for coke dealing, and he gets a longer sentence than he anticipated. He's very confident, kind of cocky and suave, and he's charismatic, and he kind of makes friends wherever he goes, kind of dude. And the FBI takes note because they are looking for someone to plant in this really terrifying prison for the criminally insane, to try to get some extra information out of this guy that they think is a serial killer. They're afraid that he's going to get out on appeal because he tends to confess and then recant and say that he was coerced, and they need some more details or to find a body that he may have buried, and he's very coy with what he lets out. And this guy, and I keep forgetting his name, but it's like a 3-part name. I think it's Paul something Hauser. He's excellent in this part. It is one of the creepiest portrayals I have ever seen. And then Taron Egerton is the coke dealer guy. And Ray Liotta's in it in one of his last roles, playing the Jimmy, the coke dealer's dad. And he's really good. Sometimes Ray Liotta's over the top, but he was really good in this one. So that was good if you're okay for some very nasty material. And I think that's it. Maybe I'll watch something more lighthearted this week, but chances are I won't. I guess Fargo's a little lighthearted. It's kind of dark humor. Anyway, let's move on to the books. In the book world, the big news from the past week or so was the Booker Prize announcement that Prophet Song by Paul Lynch is the winner. And I'm going to save some comments about that for a video I'm going to do on Tuesday that has to do with dystopian literature. How's that for a holiday topic? Today I really just want to talk about what I've been reading over this past time period, because I have a bunch since I missed a week. So let's move on. So when last we spoke, I was finishing these two books, which I did finish. This one kind of underwhelmed me. I talked about it last time a little bit. The premise was great, about a group of homeless individuals who band together and win a giant lottery ticket, and a retired journalist who helps them claim their prize and guide them through the process. But it just had too many episodes of inspirational, preachy moments from characters, or stereotypical characters, some klutzy passages interspersed with some good ones. I really like the framework of them going to the movies and how different movies affected them in different ways. And they were all movies from the late 80s because they keep going to the movie theater. So it's kind of fun to relive that. The one main character in the group of homeless people that's a woman, she's the one that starts the whole story, and it seems like it's going to have great potential, and then she just turns out to be sort of this angel figure who all she wants to do is just tend to these men and care for these men, and she calls them her boys and makes sure they're okay, and nothing about her own personal journey. Everyone else gets this whole big, arc. So then I also finished On Juneteenth by Annette Gordon-Reed, and this also was an excellent short book about the history of African Americans in Texas, the inaccurate histories, the attitudes that surround the rewriting of history in ways that exclude groups of people. And it just has a lot of interesting things to think about. It'd be a great discussion book or a buddy read. If you haven't ever read it, you might want to find a friend to read along with it, because there's a lot of things to talk about. All right, so let's go on to things I haven't yet shared. When we went on our Thanksgiving trip, I took along More Tales of the City by Armistead Maupin, and I brought this along because I knew it would be a reliable, light, rollicking type of read during travels, and it did fit that bill. And what's funny about this series and his style of writing, and I'm just going to assume that he continues the series in this style, is that it's very episodic, because the first few books were serialized in a San Francisco paper. And so there's these very short chapters, and it just kind of bounces around through the main characters, and everybody intersects in different ways. But he maintains this fast-paced, snappy dialogue, breezy style, whether what the things that are happening are often humorous, but sometimes there's some rather serious topics that come up too, but he just jaunts along in that same style. It's kind of like when there's a scene in a movie and they play some very happy music during a a scene of violence or something, and you're just like, whoa, this is kind of jarring. So that happens a lot. There's a serious illness. There is a very kind of heart-rending coming out. It seems like each of the books so far has had some bizarre crimes and things like that, and then it just kind of la 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 la. So it's a funny kind of ride, but I did enjoyed it again, and I do want to read the third book. The next one was a strange one, and that was Normal Rules Don't Apply by Kate Atkinson. And I was actually reading this concurrently with a few of these books. I don't know, I started it back when I was still on these, and then I did not take it on the trip, and then I picked it back up when I came back. It wasn't billed as a connected story where you would want to read it straight through like a novel, and so I started reading it off and on in between other things, because that usually works better if the stories are unrelated. But the thing is, they kind of were connected, not in a way that makes an entire story, but there were recurring characters and incidents that weaved through them, and so they didn't exactly stand alone, and they didn't fully connect either. They're very different than what you'd expect in a Kate Atkinson novel. They are, some of them, they're kind of speculative or magic realism or fantasy. None of them were straight up realistic stories. They all had, several of them had a recurring situation where there's this thing called the void, where every day at a certain time, and the time moves forward 5 minutes a day, and if you are outside during that time, you fall down dead. So it's like this apocalyptic thing that's occurring, and it just pops up in various stories. There's one story that is specifically about it, and then it's just mentioned in passing, like, oh, you know, the void's about to come. And it's like, what? There's a talking dog and a talking horse that recur in several stories. There's a entire story about a fairy tale. It's sort of a meta story because there's a fairy tale, but the fairy tale is included in a collection that a professor wrote about feminist motifs in fairy tales, but then it's actually playing out in the world. And anyway, really weird. If you are expecting Jackson Brody or type writing, it's not here. It's different. It's fun. It's bizarre, but it's just weird. But I kind of liked it. All right, so the last two books that I read are the best ones. I didn't save the best for last on purpose. It just worked out that in my reading, these were the best. And the first one I did talk about in my haul video the other day was Moon of the Crusted Snow by Waubgeshig Rice. I get tongue-tied on his name every time. It's something about the B and the G being right next to each other. It just stops my tongue in its tracks. But in this book, there's a small community in northern Canada on an Indian reservation. Very small little community, and they're used to really tough winters. They're not surprised on occasion when there's a big snowstorm or the power goes out for a day or the cell phone coverage doesn't work. It's set in contemporary time. And so when these things start to happen one weekend, nobody's really too alarmed at first, but then they start to realize that everything has gone down. The phones, the internet, the landline phones, the electricity, and they're starting to get a sense that something larger has happened and that this might be a long-term situation. And the winter is rolling in and the snow is starting to fall. And because we have already read the blurbs, we know that this is about a bigger situation before they do, which really heightens the tension when you're reading the first couple of chapters, because the people are like, oh, you know, the power went out again. Okay, well, but we're like, no, get ready, because we can tell what's, and so eventually they do figure out that there's something more serious afoot. And the eeriness and the tension just rises up in this story. Our main character is a young man named Evan. He's, I would say he's in his mid-20s, and he lives with his partner and their two children. And Evan has decided to live, and his wife have decided to live in a way that is more traditional. So he has a part-time job with the power company, but he spends the rest of his time hunting and fishing and gathering food in more traditional ways. And he has those skills. They're teaching their children their native language. They're really trying to respect and preserve those things and live more authentically. And there's a scene early on when they have a town meeting that really kind of illustrates that how everyone is at different places on this in the community. They're having a meeting and they call upon this woman, Eileen, who's the oldest person in town in her late 90s, to do a smudging ritual to kind of like cleanse the room before the meeting. And as Evan looks around, he can kind of see how there's people who are happily anticipating this and they are looking forward to being approached with the smoke, and other people are being polite and just tolerating it. Other people are just impatient. That kind of illustrates how this community is at all different kind of points as far as their culture and traditional ways. And it also makes you think about how most people have not a whole lot of contact with any of those kind of skills. If all of the systems went down where I live, I don't know. I couldn't go out and just forage off the land. I don't have months of food saved up in my, well, I don't even have a basement. I don't, So who's going to be prepared? And this book is really good at a lot of things. It's suspenseful, it's scary. The use of dreams is really interesting and compelling in here. And there's a really well-crafted theme of the effects of colonialism on this community and how is coming to play in this particular crisis. So there are so many things to recommend this book, and it's short, there's no fluff, and there's a sequel. I'm so excited. But I really enjoyed this, and you're going to hear about it yet again in my video about apocalyptic and dystopian novels of the year on Tuesday. Blurb. And then finally, I read one more book that was very different in tone from that, but it was so good. Now, before I talk about this book, let me just say, this was the one that it was on my November TBR, and I put it there because I've been meaning to read it all year. Way back at the beginning of the year, Stephen read it, or he read it either at the end of last year or the beginning of this year, and he said, oh, this is so good, you have to read it. And I've meant to read it all year, never got to it, but he kind of inspired me again because recently he read not one, but two books that I have been encouraging him to read for a long time. Demon Copperhead, and then right now he's reading Commonwealth by Ann Patchett. So I finally said, okay, I got to read this now. And it was The Promise by Damon Galgut, which was the Booker Prize winner of 2021. And now that, I never read the Booker Prize book from last year yet, but when I look at 2021 and 2023, this was so much more satisfying a read than Prophet Song. Some books you read them, and as you think back on, they kind of grow and get better when they percolate, and Prophet Song's not percolating that well. It's actually, it's kind of suffering. Like the bang and the fizzle of it, it's like now it's like the end of the fireworks when you just kind of see the little faded pieces falling down from the sky. But this one was really good. If you have not read it, it is a story about a family. I'm going to read a little bit. I found a good description in here. I got to say, though, some of these people that wrote blurbs for the novel, they kind of did them dirty because they have these very bloated, overinflated blurbs with no description of the actual book. They make it sound like the book's going to be this big, tedious trek or something. Edmund White says, the most important book of the last 10 years. I don't think that really does you any favors to say something like that. That's just such a buildup. Listen to this one. They don't even admit who said this. It just says the New York Times Book Review. The Promise adopts a protean tone, now menacing, now darkly mirthful. Galgut is a gleeful satirist, mordantly skewering his character's fecklessness and hypocrisy. Does that give you any sense at all of what this book is about? Or does it just give you the sense that somebody likes to play around with words? But here's what the book's actually about. Haunted by an unmet promise, the Swart family gradually comes apart after the death of their matriarch. This is set in South Africa, and that's very important. Adrift, the lives of the three siblings move separately through the uncharted waters of a changing South Africa. Anton, the golden boy who bitterly resents his life's unfulfilled promises. Astrid, whose beauty is her power, and the youngest, Emor, whose life is shaped by a nebulous feeling of guilt. Reunited by 3 funerals over 3 decades, the dwindling family reflects the atmosphere of its country, an atmosphere of resentment, renewal, and possibility. The Promise is an epic drama that unfurls against the unrelenting march of history. The Promise begins in the mid-'80s and goes forward. Such a turbulent time in South Africa. And I did have to stop a couple of times and look up some of the events that were happening to refresh my memory of, and it did bring back a lot of memories about the boycotts and the ending of apartheid and Nelson Mandela's release and just all kinds of things that happened during that time that I heard about in the news. But imagining just living through those changes. And so the structure is in the structure of the times that the family comes back together for a funeral, beginning with the mother's death at the beginning, and a promise that she makes. Actually, she asks her husband to fulfill a promise, and he does not. And that just sets a whole lot of things into play that affect everybody in the story going forward. And I won't tell you what it is because I don't want to give it away. But it's I love that structure of the people coming back every time there's a funeral, and they go through that shock of when they haven't seen a person in years, and the physical changes, and then the things where they think, oh, she hasn't changed, she's always been like that, and the thing where everyone is thinking they're going to try to keep it together and not get into grievances because that's not what they're there for. They need to act appropriate because it's a funeral, but at the same time it's the most stressful of situations and everybody's afraid, and so they end up just acting out, and the behavior is not at its best, and things happen. And so that just the whole messy family saga and all of the damages that they inflict upon each other and themselves, either purposely or accidentally. I love a story like that. And then with the wider layer of South Africa through those times, it was just really, really good. Just a really excellent story, beautifully written. And I'm so glad I finally took time to read it. So if you have not ever read The Promise, I highly recommend it. And I am going to check and see. That's the only book I've read by Damon Galgut. So if you have a recommendation of something else that's really good by this author, please put it in the comments. Okay. So that is it. December is starting. It's time for Remember December and holiday reading and other things. And I'm just going on record now and saying I have got to read Northwood's ASAP. So you may hear about that sooner rather than later. Let me know what you have been reading or what you're planning to start this weekend. Any comments on any of these books I read or recommendations of other books by these authors. And if you are interested in seeing my tea advent calendars, I'm going to put that piece here at the end. And if not, I will be back on Tuesday, and I hope you have a great weekend. Bye-bye. All right, everyone. So here's the 2 advent calendars that I bought for myself. These are tea advent calendars, and the first one is Plum Deluxe, and I've been getting this one for a few years, and they kind of change the format from year to year. So this year they have this tin. Let's see. So I don't know what this QR code is for. There's like a little guide here about and there's a place where you can write down the ones that you liked, because right at the end, I guess on the 25th, they open up where you can buy extras, because a lot of these are specialty flavors that are only in the calendar, and then some of them are ones that they already have. It's a very lovely tea company with a nice Facebook group. And then this is the cheat sheet, like behind these little, whoops, upside down, behind these little doors, tells you what the flavor is. There's also a Facebook group called Tea Club Spoilers, where if you can't wait, you can talk about the flavors. And then, so there's a packet for each day, and then inside there's supposed to be 2 little packets of that day's tea. I didn't realize when I ordered it that it was going to have 2 this year, because in the past it's just had 1, and I accidentally ordered 2 calendars that are each doing 2, so I'm gonna get like 4 teas a day. So I actually probably will repeat the whole thing in January. And then I'll show you the format of the other one, but I'm going to put all of these into a hanging advent calendar that I have. Okay, so this is the second one, and this is Yawn Brew. I got this on Etsy. It's a UK tea company. I've never tried them, and I got this one because it's breakfast teas. This one is caffeinated teas, but it could be different kinds of teas, and I am mainly a black tea drinker, but I will try other things unless they're green. And this one was breakfast tea, so it's almost all black. It lists a description of each tea, and then if you hold it upside down, you can see what it actually is. And they are in these little cardboard packets. So this looks like this, and I'm hoping that inside, I don't know if it's going to be just a quantity. Oh, I see a little, yeah, I don't even know if it, maybe it's tea bags. I don't know if it's loose leaf or tea bags, really, because it's an experiment. This is what I like to do. I have one kind of a surefire, I know I'll like it, and that's Plum Deluxe, and then this one is an experiment to see what I think. And I'll show you where I hang them, and then when it gets to December 1st, I'll be opening one every day, or actually opening both every day and trying them out. Okay, and so here's the hanging calendar, and this is super awkward because it's in the hallway, and I have to like stand in the bathroom to get a shot of it. I'm going to try to go on the other side too, but it's a hanging pocket calendar, and the little reindeer, this is very cheesy, but I like it. And the little reindeer are from a previous year when they sent a hanging kit with like with twine, and I've just added it to this calendar, and it's very, very busy because of the 2 different teas I've stuffed in the pockets and all of the paraphernalia, but that is how it looks. Maybe if I stand over here in the foyer, oh, that's actually better. Yeah, so that's it, and we'll wait for December 1st and see what teas I got, and I'm not planning to do a daily vlog about that, but maybe I will share from time to time what I've been sipping this holiday season. So there you go. Merry Christmas. And fast forward to December 1st, and I'm enjoying my first cup of tea that I've opened on at breakfast here this morning. Have a great weekend, everybody.